Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, if you want to use WhatsApp and you want to keep using it, you'll have to sign up to its new terms and conditions by this weekend. Some people have ditched the app because of concerns about how their data is going to be used. Meanwhile, Apple and Facebook are in the middle of a heated row over information that's collected by apps on the new iPhone operating system. These are the latest flashpoints in an ongoing battle between big tech firms over how they use details of our habits and preferences and the trade-off we make with our privacy. Here's James Clayton.
There's an old adage in Silicon Valley. If a product is free, then you're the product. Facebook and Google in particular make almost all of their money from your data. Advertisers love micro-targeted ads. Want a 40-year-old man who lives in Huddersfield who's recently searched for some new curtains? Well, Facebook knows exactly who they are and can beam those ads straight into his computer screen or phone. And of course, what do you do when you're looking for a new pair of curtains? Well, often you'll Google it, and up will pop not the most pertinent pages you search for, but paid ads. It means that between them, Google and Facebook comfortably take more than half of all the online advertising spent in the UK. The two companies together are worth more than $2 trillion. But increasingly, governments and citizens are beginning to ask where their data is going and how it's being used. Facebook in particular has this year been under pressure from all sides about privacy.
Technology does not need vast troves of personal data stitched together across dozens of websites and apps in order to succeed. Advertising existed and thrived for decades without it. And we're here today because the path of least resistance is rarely the path of wisdom. If a business is built on misleading users, on data exploitation, on choices that are no choices at all, then it does not deserve our praise. It deserves reform.
We believe that you should have a choice.
Apple wants to be known as the knight in shining armor when it comes to data protection. It's run a huge privacy campaign in the US. Its new iOS update means that apps have to tell you if they want to track you around the internet, and that is terrible news for Facebook.
A lot of these changes are going to make it harder for small businesses and developers. And I think the situation is going to be challenging for them to navigate. And, you know, I just think it's one of the reasons why Facebook has been a bit outspoken on this is, you know, there are certain principles that we care about, and empowering individuals is one of them.
Well, maybe. But this being big tech, this all boils down to money. Facebook claims that Apple will make more money if apps can't make cash from advertising. Apple takes a cut from apps that charge a fee to customers, but not from apps that make money from advertising. So the more apps that choose a payment model, the better for Apple. Apple says it's privacy-focused, and it's all just a bit of a coincidence that they also stand to gain from their privacy policies. Ultimately, though, this all comes down to privacy versus money. In a world where our data isn't sold to advertisers, we're probably going to have to pay more. And are we willing to do that?
James Clayton reporting. Dr. Michael Veal is a lecturer in digital rights and regulation at University College London and joins us now. Could these changes be devastating for Facebook?
So they could be. I mean, Facebook is in quite a precarious position because unlike a company like Apple or Google, it doesn't have very deep roots into the infrastructure. So Apple and Google both control hardware, software, your phones and devices. And Facebook just sort of sits on top of these for most of its products, and it's really feeling that precarity right now.
And this piece of software that we've been talking about, deployed by Apple, Flock, talk to us about why we should understand that in terms of the walled garden and what that means for users.
Yeah, so that's by Google, actually, Google Chrome.
Excuse me.
So Google has been spending the last decade trying to close the web by getting everybody on its browser, the browser that it controls. And it's sort of seen the writing on the wall for the way it's traditionally made money, which is through something called real-time bidding. It's really adverts embedded in websites, and it involved data flowing to thousands of companies illegally. And it sees the writing on the wall for that. So now what it does is Google's general model is let's track everything a user does, but keep it on their own device. And if we control the device, we control how to target those users. And Apple could play a similar game because Apple have such control over the iPhone.
So this walled garden is basically your data and your information living within one ecosystem. And that's a problem or not a problem?
Well, it's a problem because these companies have never been interested in opening your mail. They've been interested in shaping your world so they can keep you in their walled garden and extract value from you and sell access to you. So, sell access to you to advertisers, sell access to you for their own products, or sell apps and so on. Yeah.
No, carry on.
And so in that world, in that walled garden, we don't really have to think about, is Google reading our message? There's no one there who cares what we're saying exactly. Google shapes our world, and it means that if we click on something different, everything we see online could change, and they're retaining that control through their browser, Google Chrome.
So with this move from Apple, for instance, how should you interpret that? Is it a positive thing that you're being sort of given more rights over your privacy, or is it actually going to reduce access, your world, your choices?
So Apple have effectively changed the way that apps can understand what other apps are available on a phone. And this is kind of tragic in a way because regulators should have done this about 10 years ago, and really stepped in, and it's taken this company to do this. If users go to their Facebook settings in privacy, they'll find something called off Facebook information. They try to download or access their data in those settings. And there they'll see that Facebook has records of hundreds of apps and websites that they use that they will probably be surprised that Facebook knows about. And it's that kind of data that Apple can do something to stop by preventing the Facebook app from seeing the other apps that are available on your phone.
I also mentioned WhatsApp and some changes there with terms and conditions. And people had been perhaps concerned about those changes, and yet we see that a lot of people will just stay with WhatsApp and agree to it. Is it that people are not that interested in their own privacy, or is it that they don't really have a choice?
So WhatsApp we've got to see in a global context, really, in particular. So UK is quite unusual for having quite a high use of WhatsApp despite it being quite a rich country. WhatsApp is really prevalent in the global south, and where we see Facebook having incredible power there, Facebook have done deals with the telecoms companies of about 60 to 100 different countries to mean that while people have to pay often extortionate amounts for the internet in these countries, WhatsApp and Facebook are for free on phones. So you find yourself stuck actually using WhatsApp because it would cost you money to use any other part of the internet. And so there, we really find that that's when users can't escape from any terms and conditions that Facebook decide to put on WhatsApp or their own app.
How do you see this playing out in terms of what's the best way this will play out for consumers, for users, with these sorts of changes?
So there's a whole range of regulations right now that are being talked about around the world that may help this situation. In the European Union, there's a set of regulations called the Digital Markets Act. The Competition and Markets Authority are looking into this in the UK. But they have to work together because ultimately we have to balance the openness of the internet and with some of the security challenges. And companies will think we can't secure the internet, we can't keep your data private unless we control everything. And that's not right. But regulators are going to have to play a clever game and avoid the traps many traps that the companies have set them over the years to come.
Thank you very much.